Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's webinar, Increase Your Chances of Passing the CIA Exam. My name is Julie Reese, and I'll be your technical producer and host for today's session. Today, we're honored to have three presenters who will share with you their industry knowledge and expertise to assist you with your CIA certification journey. First to present will be Greg Van Choik, Director of Certification Administration and Communications here at the IIA, followed by Vicki McIntyre, who's the president of First Plus Resolutions, Inc., and also one of our IIA CIA Learning System instructors. And last but not least, Kelly Quinn, Vice President of the IIA Strategic Partnership for the CIA Learning System. Before we begin, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items. During the presentation, if you have any technical issues, please press F5 to relaunch the presentation. This should resolve most technical issues. You'll also want to ensure that your Flash player is enabled, and you might see an option to enable it in your media player on the console. If you continue to experience technical issues, you may also send us a message via the Q&A feature on your console. And additionally, you may want to download the slides from today's session from the resource list at the bottom of your console. You can do that at any time. It should just pop up a separate window to do so. If time permits, we'll be taking some questions at the conclusion of the presentation. However, please feel free to submit your questions at any time using the Q&A feature located at the top left of your console. Please be advised that this is a non-issuing CPE event, so no certificates will be issued for attendance today. Also, during today's broadcast, we'll be giving away a complimentary online CIA review course. You must be present to win, and we will draw the lucky person's name at the end of the presentation. Kelly will provide you with more details during the presentation. It's vital you understand the CIA program and requirements, as well as the most effective way to study in order to pass the CIA exam and earn your CIA certification. Our first speaker is Greg Van Choik, who will give you a brief overview of the CIA program, application process, and exam. Greg?
Thank you very much, Julie. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're calling in from us around the world. Like Julie said, my name is Greg Van Choik, and I am the Director of Certification, Administration, and Communications for IIA Global. Today, we're going to share a couple of items, such as the Certified Internal Auditor, or CIA program overall, the overview of the program. We're also going to dive into exam preparation, the CIA Learning System, study tips and test-taking tips, links and resources, and then finally ending up with questions. So let's get started. So today we're going to be talking about the flagship certification, or the CIA. And to give you a little bit of an overview of the entire program, there are currently over 165,000 certified CIAs globally. It is the only globally recognized certification for internal auditors, and it allows you to audit in any country, in any company, any industry around the world. The CIA certification is based on the International Professional Practices Framework, or IPPS. So what are some of the benefits of earning the CIA? You gain instant credibility with internal and external clients. It increases your opportunities for advancement, broaden your knowledge base, expand your confidence, distinguishes you from your peers, and increases your earning potential. So the certification process, before you start, you have to apply into the program. And this is all done through the Certification Candidate Management System, or the acronym that we use is CTMS. If you already have a profile in CTMS, but forgot your username or password, you can select the Reset button, or if you don't have one, you can create a new profile. So by creating that, it'll take you a step-by-step process, ask you some basic information to create your profile, such as address, email address, phone number, etc. It's very important that you use your primary email address to access this account moving forward. And so it just takes a couple of different steps in order to get approved into the CIA program. It's apply, register for an exam, schedule your examination, and then once again, we verify your experience. So let's start with applying, number one. First, you want to access your CTMS profile, and then on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see complete a form. This is where you actually want to select and complete the CIA application form, and then complete the following steps, going to the payment screen and clicking on Confirm. You then are required to supply some supporting documentation. I like to think of it as entry requirements. The entry requirements for the program is education, government-issued ID, and a character reference form. These 3 documents need to be uploaded into the document upload portal. On this, you have to use your CTMS ID number, to which you'll gain access to once you create a profile. Once those documents are approved and you also submit your application, you'll be into what is called an approved status, which then allows you to take step number 2, and that is to register for an exam part. You can take, there are 3 exams for the CIA program, and you can take them in any order that you want to. So you'll follow the same steps by going into complete a form and then register for one of the particular CIA exam parts. Once this occurs, you'll receive a notification via email with additional instructions to then access the Pearson View website, which allows you to actually schedule your examination. We have over 930 test centers globally in about 170 countries. So you can choose the exam center that's closest to you, or if you're traveling for work or fun, you can actually go to a different country and choose it there. And you can also determine what days and times are available to schedule your examination. Once you complete and pass all 3 examination parts, you then have to verify your experience. And the amount of experience varies by the educational background that you have, such as a master's, bachelor's degree, or an associate's degree. The experience requirement it is to exit the program. So you don't have to have the experience to enter, but you do need it to obtain your CIA after passing all your examination parts. So once you get approved into the CIA program, you have 3 years to complete all 3 examinations and obtain your required experience. So once again, like I stated, the experience is all based on the level of education that you have achieved. So IIA also offers an alternative pathway for candidates who do not possess the minimum education requirements, and highly recommend that you click on the link because it lists out all of the entry and exit requirements for the program, so you can kind of look at your specific case. So it looks like we have a polling question, and I'll pass it off to Julie.
Thank you, Greg. Yes, we do have a polling question here for the audience. That question reads, when are you planning to take a CIA exam part? Your choices are within the next 6 months, within the next 12 months, or maybe you haven't decided yet. Please go ahead and select the radio button that best suits your answer, and then click Submit so your answer is recorded. Again, this webinar is not issuing CPE, so it's not mandatory that you answer, but we'd like to get a good idea of where everybody's at in their CIA certification journey at this point. We'll give you about 10 to 15 more seconds to make your selection. Okay, I'm going to be closing the poll here in the next few seconds, so go ahead and make your selection if you've not already done so. And I am closing the poll now and pushing out the results. Looks like we have the majority that are indicating within the next 6 months. Do you have any comments on that, Greg?
Oh, it's very interesting. So we see, when we analyze candidate behavior, we do see a lot of individuals who, once they are approved into the program, they do continue on relatively quickly, and they're ready to essentially sit for the exam in the next 6 months. So it's not super surprising to see this data, but all candidates kind of range, but just keep in mind that you have 3 years to pass all 3 examinations. So it's very interesting. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. And the CIA exam, let's get into some specifics. So like I said before, it's a 3-part exam. So part 1 contains 125 multiple questions, and the time that you have to complete the examination is 2 hours and 30 minutes. Parts 2 and Part 3 both have the same amount of multiple choice questions at 100 and the same duration of 2 hours. So if you finish early, that's fine, but it will cut you off at the 2-hour mark, so you do have to complete all of the questions. The scoring is based on a scale of 250 to 750, you're required to get a score of 600 or above in order to pass the exam. Now, it's not the scoring. We have a website. We encourage you to look at the IIA website and the syllabus page, and there's a detailed analysis of what goes on in scoring. We do get a lot of questions of individuals who says, oh, I just missed it by 1 point. Necessarily, that may not be the case because it is what's called a scaled scoring. So it's not necessarily kind of a one-to-one ratio. So it is a year-round computer-based testing. So you just go to a Pearson VUE Testing Center, and you sit in front of a computer for the duration to take your examination. And there's also, we have an online tutorial, so you can kind of view how that looks online and what you're going to experience at the test center. We did have some CIA syllabi changes. We updated the examination in 2019 in English. And we also, the exam is available in Arabic, traditional Chinese, English, French, German, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, Russian, Spanish, Thai, and Turkish. Simplified Chinese will be launched in the syllabus that's currently live in English on the 1st of June, and then followed by Polish the 1st of January next year. To learn more about the syllabi updates, you can click on the link, and it also provides the specific topic areas for each exam part. Here are the 3 topic areas for the kind of divided by exams. So you can kind of see the percentages to what topic area it is for what particular part. So this was a total refresh that we did in this examination in 2019. So make sure you take a look at this, as this is the topic areas you're going to be tested on during the exam. Probably the largest change we did was on the CIA Part 3. We reduced it from 8 topics to 4 topics. And it really focuses on business acumen. We added, this is brand new, information security and information technology. So there's 2 topic areas that we added. We also went from 8 down to 4 topics, so it's a little bit more concentrated. Some of the program changes we also had is the new program window is actually 3 years for an individual once they are approved into the program. If the individual gets to the end of the 3 years and they have not completed the 3 examinations or met the experience requirement, there is a one-time only option to extend the program an additional 365 days. You pay the fee and you get 1 additional year. It is only option 1 additional year, and then that's it. If unfortunately you're unable to meet all the requirements in that program period, you will have to apply into a new program and take all the examinations again. So Julie, it looks like we have another polling question.
Yep, did you push to that slide already, Greg?
I did indeed.
Okay, it must not be refreshing on my screen. 1 second. All right, that question reads, have you already applied for the CIA certification program? Your choices are yes, no, or not sure. Once again, please select the radio button that best suits your answer and click Submit so your answer is recorded. And just as a friendly reminder, if you're not able to see the poll, don't worry. These are not mandatory questions since we're not issuing CPE. But if you're able to answer it, please do so. We'll give everybody about 10 more seconds. All right, I am going to be closing the poll here in the next few seconds. And the poll is now closed, and results are up on the screen. Looks like we've got a pretty almost even mix between yes and no. What do you think, Greg?
Well, that's very good to know as well. So there might be some individuals having questions of, what does it take to enter into the program? And that can I really encourage individuals to look at the eligibility requirements page on the IIA website. And it clearly indicates what you need for education and experience, such as the other requirements, which is just a government-issued ID and character reference. For those who have already applied and approved into the program, what you can do is, when you're ready to sit for the examination, is go to complete a form, and then select one of the exam parts you wish to take in any order you like. So it's about 50-50. So it's nice, kind of a nice mix. And moving forward to the next slide here, let's wait for it to load, is once you are certified, you have met all the requirements, you then, depends whether you have to report and keep on reporting your certification in order to remain active or in certified status. by remaining active and in certified status, it allows you to show the world that you are indeed a CIA certified and that you can place the initials after your name. So if it was Greg Van Choik, CIA. If I do not report my CPE each year, I fall into a category what is called inactive, which means I'm no longer able to utilize the CIA after my name. So at the end of the time I have to report, a practicing and non-practicing internal auditor. That's kind of how we either classify it. For a practicing internal auditor, you have to report 40 hours of CPE every year, including 2 hours of ethics. A non-practicing CIA has to report 20 hours of CPE each year. And so if let's say I get certified this year, then I have to report at the end of this, I have to report by 31 December 2022. So we do have a grace period, and then on your CTMS profile, it will indicate your certification is valid until this date. Before that date, you'll have to report your CPE, whether you're practicing or non-practicing. I did want to mention this as a communication was going out today to CTMS users, is that we have really put a lot of time and redevelopment in to redo our CTMS. So if we understand that the current CTMS has a lot of challenges and it's not user-friendly. We've heard that feedback, and it's been a couple of year process that we've redeveloped a new CTMS. We are targeting a launch date of this new CTMS on the 16th of March, just coming up in a couple of weeks. This system is a lot user-friendly, so it's kind of like a wizard where you kind of go step by step by step. Another great benefit of this new CTMS is that you can upload all of your documents, your education, government-issued ID, and character reference all within one place. The other great added benefit is that you can actually do all of your exam scheduling within the CTMS. So we have a lot of great enhancements that are going to happen on the 16th of March. However, if you're planning on either doing a transaction, either applying into the program or submitting an exam registration between 8 and 15 of March, the system will go offline. And this is for us to help prepare the launch of the new CTMS on the 16th. So during this period between 8 and 15 of March, individuals will not be able to access their profile, change existing exam appointments until the 16th of March. So there is a transition website available on the IIA website, what kind of, you can understand more of what scenario in case you might fall into and kind of what you're supposed to do. So just wanted to bring that up. A lot of the policies and documentation can be found in the certification handbook. Everything from hardship extensions, program extensions, everything from A to B will be in this certification handbook. I highly recommend you read it from cover to cover as you are either approved into the program or looking into the CIA program. So with that, I'm going to turn it on over to Vicki, and she's going to talk to you about exam preparation.
Thank you, Greg, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'm very excited to be with you all today to talk to you about how you can maximize the likelihood that you're going to be successful on your CIA examinations. We want to recognize that the CIA exam is based on the IIA's International Professional Practices Framework. So that is the IPPS, and that's the red book that you all should hold very near and dear to your hearts. That's kind of the internal auditor's Bible. It gives us all of the standards. It gives us the code of ethics, the definition of internal auditing, those 10 core principles, our mission statement, and all of that body of knowledge that you're going to be tested on your exams. Recognize that any good CIA exam preparation system should model the IPPS. In order for it to be an effective exam prep tool, it must model the professional practices framework. So why would you use the IIA's CIA learning system? It follows the IPPS and the CIA examination syllabus nearly identically. It teaches the entire syllabus. And when I say it teaches the syllabus, I mean that the system is designed for learning, not really memorization. So it's going to help you understand the standards, understand internal audit methodology. It's going to help you apply the content and the concepts rather than just memorizing facts and information for an exam. In my experience with teaching the CIA learning system, I have had many students in class who are there really to learn the body of knowledge, to learn the standards, to learn internal audit methodology, and maybe they're planning to take their CIA exams at some point later in the future in their career, like maybe after they've been working for 3 or 4 years. But the reality is that the learning system will teach you the body of knowledge and the methodology to prepare you to better do your work, to deliver better value to your auditees and your audit customers. The learning system is designed to fit any learning style, whether you're an auditory learner, you're a kinesthetic learner. It also helps with traveling. You can download the content to your e-reader. It's easy to use and can be flexible for any learning schedule. The online study tools are available immediately and on demand whenever you need the material, even if you have a 20 or 30-minute snippet of time that you can be working on some multiple choice questions, for example. The CIA learning system is very flexible and adaptable to your lifestyle and your schedule. You get to choose your learning option. So think about how you learn best. If you are very self-motivated, self-reliant, if you're very structured and very disciplined, then maybe you do very well with self-study. And you can use the learning system for that delivery channel. It's convenient. Again, it's going to help you with avoiding time away from work and having to attend a live classroom environment. But again, the self-study CIA candidate requires that you're highly disciplined and you don't need that interaction with an instructor or with other students. Instructor-led courses are held in online in the virtual space. The IIA hosts virtual classes from time to time. Also, they're delivered online through various universities. Also, we have in-person classes, so live and in-person in a live classroom. These courses are offered by IIA chapters. They're also offered at IIA headquarters right there in Lake Mary, Florida. And that's a lovely learning environment. I've had the privilege of being in the headquarters office and teaching there once or twice. You also have instructor-led courses that are live on university campuses. So there are a lot of learning options. In the corporate environment, generally for larger, more well-established internal audit functions, sometimes an audit activity will bring an instructor in and do an exclusive learning system delivery just for the auditors in their audit shop. And I've done this a number of times with different corporate clients. One of the most remarkable and memorable experiences was over in Lausanne in Switzerland. We had a Fortune 500 company over there with a large audit shop, and we trained a bunch of auditors, and they had a very disciplined approach to their studying and their classroom time, and we had about 92% success rates for those folks on their exams. I was just in New York City last week working with a group from a UK-based financial services organization. So the corporate environment and bringing an instructor into your internal audit shop is another opportunity for those that have the resources and perhaps more auditors on the team. Bottom line is that these various delivery channels, are going to help you learn regardless of your preferred learning style. And just recognize that the IIA's North American Board of Directors and the Global Board and the Learning Solutions Department wants to solve the dilemma of how to maximize certified internal auditors. Greg mentioned that this is a globally recognized certification, the only globally recognized certification. So once you earn it and you maintain your CPE year over year, you have it for life, and it is portable to anywhere around the globe that you might want to go work as an internal auditor, or even in a risk management role, or an internal controls role, or maybe a compliance role. So it's a great thing to have. So Julie, why don't you introduce this next polling question?
Thanks, Vicki. We're at the third question here, and that one reads, how do you like to study? Your choices are on my own, self-study program, in a classroom, in-person instructor-led course, in an online classroom, online instructor-led course, or is it some other way? Please do select the radio button that best suits your answer and click submit so your answer is recorded, and we'll give everybody about 15 seconds to make their selection. Getting ready to close the poll here in a few seconds, so go ahead and make your selection if you've not already done so. And I am closing the poll now and pushing out the results. And it looks like the majority are going with on my own self-study program.
This is very interesting, Julie. I'll just take a risk here and suggest that I think this is a bit generational. We're finding that more and more students coming into the CIA learning system arena and internal auditors who are newer to the profession and seeking that certification tend to like to study on their own. They don't want to hassle with driving to a location and having to park and so forth. It's convenient to be able to be in a virtual classroom in the comfort of your own home office or living room or whatever. So that works well. I think the in-person instructor-led courses are also a great opportunity, again, for those that really like the interaction with other students, those that enjoy networking. I'm currently teaching an internal audit class at UCLA in Southern California. And it's just very interesting, the dynamic. And it's not a CIA exam prep course. It's just kind of an internal audit 101 course. But it's very interesting, the dynamic and the stories that are shared in the classroom. So I'm pretty much tried and true traditionalist. I like the classroom environment, the live interaction with people. But the important thing here is that the learning system and the CIA exam prep courses give you all of the delivery channels, and so you get to pick and choose what's best for you. Interesting that 57% like to do it on their own. Okay. So how can we prepare for success? First of all, planning. The tried and true statements. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. The 6 Ps, right? Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Or if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So we want to be successful. Planning your studies is critical. Recognize the time that you have week over week to study, and be realistic about your commitments to your job, your personal life, your social life, and so forth. If you're committed to studying, 6 hours a week, that's cool. 6 hours a week is it. Just figure that your duration of study, you might be studying for perhaps 8 or 10 weeks for one part. If you can study 10 to 15 hours a week, that's fine too. Obviously, you're going to shorten the duration from the time that you begin your studies to the time that you are prepared to sit for your exam. It doesn't matter how many hours you study per week. What is most important is that you plan your study time. You put it on your calendar, and you show up for those study appointments just like you would any other commitment. We find that the discipline of planning for study and showing up for your study sessions is critical to success. So planning your studies, calendaring your study time is your first step. Study the reading materials. So you'll read the information, You'll make your notes and do it just like you were preparing for a college course and a final exam. Your CIA exam part 1 is your final exam for this course, for part 1. So you study the reading materials, you focus on the weak areas and those areas that are most unfamiliar to you. It always astonishes me that, I've had a few students come back and tell me that they really enjoy one topic or another. They really enjoy the Quality Assurance and Improvement Program. And they're scoring 100% on those quiz questions, and they're very excited about that. But they tend to not focus and not emphasize the areas that they're less familiar with and the areas that are more uncomfortable for them, like maybe sampling or statistics or data analytics or some of those topics. And those are the areas where they really need to be committing their time. So the point is, focus on your weak areas and those areas that are unfamiliar to you, and also the sections of the exam topics that are weighted more heavily than the others. You will see in your learning system, at the beginning of each section of each part, you will see the weighting of the number of questions in each part. So for example, in the part 3, business acumen section is 35% of your 100 exam questions for part 3. So you know that that's going to be 35 out of 100 questions. That's pretty heavy emphasis. So you're going to study the areas that are weighted more heavily. Application of the concepts, you're going to learn very quickly by taking the quizzes and the practice tests. The quiz questions in the CIA learning system will give you a red or a green indicator. Green means you got the answer correct. Red means not so fast, incorrect. It will also give you a reference back to your textbook, to the chapter and verse, the topic, so that you can circle back and reinforce that content, so that you can go back and reread, restudy, and make sure you understand it. I always tell my students, as you're taking quizzes, keep track of those questions that you are guessing at. Very often you can eliminate 2 of the 4 multiple choice answers as incorrect, and then you're left with 2, and you're stuck. So at least now you got a 50-50 chance of getting that answer correct. But mark those on a little sidebar piece of paper and make sure you circle back to the content, even if you're lucky, excuse me, and you get the answer correct, because you want to reinforce the learning. So application of the concepts through the quizzes and tests. Also, the learning system has a resource tab where you can download flashcards. And we strongly encourage that, you do this the old-fashioned way. You print the term on one side, you print the vocabulary terminology on one side and the definition on the other side of your paper. And then as you're memorizing terminology and definitions, you are augmenting those flashcards. You are literally writing down bullet points of supporting content that's going to help you with your recall of the terminology and the definitions, and are going to help you in those more difficult exam questions where you have to analyze or synthesize information and draw a conclusion and exercise judgment. So using the flashcards, I've heard from many, many, many students the feedback that the flashcards have been a very good study aid. When you have difficulty on the quizzes, obviously you're going to circle back to that content, reinforce it, restudy it. The learning system also gives you links to other materials. So for some of the topics, perhaps you're just not getting it. You're not experiencing the level of success that you need on the exam. You need to be answering these quiz questions at about 90% success rate to be successful on the CIA exam. So there are links to other resources, such as the IPPS and other tools to augment your study if necessary. Practice for your exam. So put yourself in exam mode by completing the final exam, the CIA practice exam emulation. test is another tool in the learning system that's going to be very helpful to you. So let's just circle back a little bit at a high level. Creating your study plan, we often hear the question, well, how many hours do I need? Well, this is, this depends on your individual internal audit experience. If you work for an internal audit activity that very closely follows the Red Book, then you will already, organically be familiar with the standards and internal audit methodology. Perhaps you work in a government audit organization that we call it Orange. Maybe you use the Orange Book, which there really is no Orange Book, but we refer to Orange as a combination of Yellow Book and Red Book. So Yellow Book is GAGAS, Generally Accepted Government Audit Standards, and in conjunction with the Red Book. So red and yellow makes orange. And sometimes there's a blurring of standards and content. So you might not be as deeply familiar with the internal audit guidance that is the subject matter of the CIA certification exams, which is exclusively found in your Red Book and your IPPS. Another important consideration for exam prep time commitment is how recently you finished college. If you're very used to reading textbooks and analyzing information and taking exams, then you're already going to be ahead of the game because you're in that pattern, you're in that mode, you're in study mode. So this is just like another course. On the other hand, if you have been out of school for a number of years, like I was when I took my CIA exams, I think I'd been out of school for about 20 years. It may be a bit tougher, and it may take more time for you to get acclimated with your study mode and your rhythm, I guess. Another consideration then is how quickly you can read and comprehend the information. Sometimes we get the question, well, Spanish is my first language. Should I study in the Spanish language text or the English language text? You want to study in the language that you are going to take your exam in. So if you're taking an English exam, you definitely want to study English exam prep materials. So how many hours? The hours that are indicated on the slide for parts 1 and 2, 40 hours each, and 50 hours for part 3. These are average study times using the IIA's CIA learning system, and they're based on the number of pages that you're going to be reading, the number of online quiz questions that you'll be doing, and other learning tools like the flashcards. So everybody learns at a different pace. So I have taught this content to thousands of people at this point in my career. I'm passionate about this CIA certification. And I'll just say, maybe I'm a slow learner because I didn't get it done this quickly. I studied about 50 hours for my part 1 and about 50 hours for my part 2. And I think I studied maybe 80 to 90 hours for my part 3. And I can tell you that I had been working for a number of years. I'm a licensed CPA, so I already had a CPA license and was successfully passed that test. But I wanted to get it right the first time, so maybe I overstudied. But regardless, my personal experience took me a little longer than what you see on this slide. And it was a number of years ago, and the exams have changed over the years too. So I took the exams about 15 or 18 years ago. So anyway, just know that you should, understand yourself, how quickly you read and comprehend information, your number of years experience. Do you work for a very dedicated Red Book audit activity? Or are you working for a government agency that maybe only uses Yellow Book? Maybe you've never, ever followed Red Book standards. So that's another consideration. Again, an important takeaway here is that you don't want to be sitting for your exam until you're mastering the quiz questions and exam questions at about 90%. So here we have our study plan. The learning system has a pre-test that's going to give you a baseline of your understanding. It's going to help you identify the topics where you are going to need the most study time. And it's going to help you, the output of this study plan, the Smart Study study plan, the output is a great little study tool that's going to give you a step-by-step study plan. And so following this customized plan is going to help you save time, and it's going to focus you on the right topics. Obviously, then you'll read the materials. So we said you can read the materials online, or you can download the materials to your e-reader. You can also order printed books if that's your learning preference as an optional add-on. There are video tutorials on the IPPS that are available to you. So again, I think you have all of the delivery channels and all of the text types to enable your learning and success on your exams. Here's an example of a quiz question. So application of the concepts. You see the little green bar there that this lucky person got this answer correct. So this is a question about the Internal Audit Charter. That's the first standard, 1000. Requirement to have a charter that defines purpose, authority, and responsibility of the audit activity. Okay, so this is an example of a quiz question. Just like your CIA exam, all of the quiz questions have 4 choice options, so they're all multiple choice. Your job is to choose the best answer. Okay, sometimes you're going to feel like there are 2 correct answers, and there very well may be, but one of the answers is more correct than the other. So you have to exercise judgment. You have to really focus on your knowledge of the Red Book standards and the Code of Ethics and the guidance to enable you to choose the best answer. And again, after each quiz question, you're going to get feedback. You'll get the correct answer indicated and the explanation for why it's the correct answer. If you choose an incorrect answer, you will get the explanation of why it's incorrect, and also you will get that reference back to the textbook where you can find more information in your reading materials. Here's an example of the glossary. So the right-hand screenshot there is the glossary that is in the learning system. And then, of course, the flashcards. So the online flashcards are printable. Again, really a good practice to augment those flashcards with additional content and supporting bullet points to help you reinforce your learning. Practice for your exam. The CIA Learning System has this Study Plus module. This gives you a guide to knowing if you're really prepared. It helps you understand the CIA exam scoring. So Greg mentioned earlier that it is scaled scoring. So when you look at those numbers, you need 600 to pass out of 750. That is not a straight 80% success on the exam, because different questions are weighted differently according to how technical the questions are or the level of difficulty. We have a CIA question analysis grid and study tips, so feedback and pointers from successful CIA candidates. So let's talk about some more study tips and some test-taking tips. In terms of studying, be sure that you choose the right study method for your learning style. When you set your exam date, be realistic, but don't procrastinate. The number one reason that my students don't earn their CIA certification, it's not because they're not capable. It's not because they're not smart enough. The bottom line is they procrastinate. They start off on this path of, study, and then other things get in the way. Life happens, and the CIA exam prep becomes less and less of a priority. Procrastination is the #1 reason that people do not earn their certification, so don't let that be you. Be realistic about your exam date. So thinking about realistic numbers of hours a week that you're willing to study, realistic duration of study, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever that looks like for you. Understand your strengths and weaknesses. Write your own flashcards. Extra effort in studying those proficiency areas. So the exam questions will be at a basic level, and your CIA learning system identifies by topic if the questions will be tested at the basic level. And again, that's, pretty simple, 30,000-foot level, basic recall of terminology and definitions, or proficiency level. And those proficiency level topics are also indicated in the learning system. Proficiency level means that, for example, you might have to take a business scenario and an internal audit challenge and take multiple pieces of information, analyze it, synthesize it, pull it all together, draw your conclusion, exercise judgment, and pick the best answer. So that's more of a proficiency level question. Be prepared for the testing center and the test format. And the learning system gives you some very good information about what you can expect when you arrive at the Pearson VUE Testing Center. Pearson VUE Testing Centers are highly secure test centers. So, the identification requirements, you're going to have to do a palm scan, a scan of your hand, your palm, and that's a, bio-identifier. So anyway, the learning system gives you a number of tips and information points about the Pearson VUE exam centers. More study tips. Obviously, you need to know the professional practices framework. You've got to know the Red Book standards and internal audit methodology according to the IIA protocols. Write an audit manual using the standards. I would recommend that at a minimum, you write a very comprehensive table of contents of an audit manual, and that's going to help you with that immediate recall of the standards, terminology, helps you to understand internal audit methodology and what should be in an internal audit manual. Think about real-life examples. So as you're studying, apply what you're reading and learning to experiences you've had in the field in your internal audit career. Consider that you have a new job. So the exam is oriented around larger, more well-established businesses. So just imagine that you work for a public company, that your chief audit executive reports to an audit committee of the board of directors, and you have a large audit department, varying staff levels. So you have internal audit staff, you have internal audit seniors, internal audit managers. Maybe you have internal audit directors, director of IT audit, director of compliance audit, director of operational audit. And another point is that you will have an advantage if you are familiar with manufacturing processes and the manufacturing cycle, purchasing and accounts payable, if you're familiar with the procurement to pay cycle, inventory, accounts receivable, if you're familiar with the sales accounts receivable collection cycle. So understanding the risks and controls in these various cycles that are common in business activities and even in nonprofits. I mean, everybody's got to pay bills. Everybody's got to hire people. Everybody has revenue streams, as in some fashion. So understanding these cycles will give you an advantage. Finally, test-taking tips. If you come upon a question that has 5 or 6 sentences in what appears to be a very long paragraph, read the question first. Look for that sentence that has the question mark at the end and read that first. Anticipate the answer. Look and see if the answer that you anticipate is in the list of 4, A, B, C, D, and then go back and read all the supporting background information related to the question. This is going to help you to understand what you're looking for so that you're locked onto the question before you read the background information. That's a very important test-taking tip and a time-saving tip. Look for qualifiers, so the clues, except for, least likely, most likely, unlike. Be sure to read the question. That's our number 1 test-taking tip. Read the question, okay? Anticipate your answer before you read those answer choices. Answer broadly and globally. What do we mean by this? If you've been an auditor, I mentioned government auditors that might be using Yellow Book, your audit approach and your audit orientation may be exclusively around performance audits. I come from a financial services background, and in my organization in the early years, we did a lot of compliance auditing. You need to think outside of your industry, think outside of your experience, think outside of the types of auditing that you typically do. Recognize that this is a global examination. It's a globally recognized certification. So you need to think at a high level. Use your common sense. Think at a high level about what would be the objectives here, what are the risks, what are the internal controls. Objectives, risk, control. And if you think about that and approach your exam questions from that perspective, you can answer a university question or a healthcare question or a manufacturing question or a technology question or a nonprofit question. Just think at that very high level, think very broadly and globally, and choose the answer that's going to be the most inclusive. Eliminate the obvious distractors, the ones that you know are wrong. Trust your first impression. Don't overanalyze the question, and don't get into that analysis paralysis mode, okay? It's a really good idea to discipline your time management so that you are working your quiz questions 1 minute per question. What that will do for you is when you get to your actual exam, when you have those 125 multiple choice questions on your Part 1 exam, if you're working at a pace of 1 minute per question, it will force you to choose an answer and move on. Choose an answer, flag the question so that you can circle back to it later, and move on. Don't get stuck on a question and let time management become your enemy. What this will do for you with 125 questions, you will be about 120 minutes or 2 hours into your 2.5-hour time allocation for your Part 1 exam. That gives you a buffer of time at the end of your exam to circle back to those questions that you flagged, that you were unsure of, and you will get a screen that will pop up on your monitor that will show you the questions that you flagged, and you'll be able to circle back to those. Very often, a subsequent question in your sequence of exam questions will trigger something in your memory that will help you to go back and more successfully answer a question that you were unsure of that you previously flagged. But all of that said, trust your first impression. Don't overanalyze the questions. Budget your time. Obviously, be well rested. You know, eat a good breakfast, those types of things. Be comfortable for the exam. So I think that's about all I have. Kelly, you want to talk about how everybody can get the IIA's CIA Learning System?
Great. Well, thank you so much to Greg for sharing the helpful information about the CIA exam and the certification process, and to Vicki for the helpful study tips. So we appreciate both of your insight. So we would like to extend a special offer for those on the call today. For participating in the call today, if you're interested in purchasing the IICI Learning System, you're able to receive a 20% discount that is available off single parts or full kits. So to receive the discount, you can go to our website, which is learnci.com, and you would enter the code CIA220 at the checkout, and that will give you 20% off the materials, so you can see the prices here. In addition, and that offer is available until March 20th. In addition, if you do have a friend or a colleague that you'd like to join together and do your purchase together, we have volume discounts that start at just 2 or more kits. So if you are interested in obtaining the pricing for maybe for your team or just for your colleague and yourself, you can contact Mike Downs at mike.downs@theia.org, and he can give you the information about the volume discount prices. Okay, a couple other resources. 2 helpful places to go here would be the ia.org/CIA. That's where you're going to find the Certification Candidate Handbook and access to that CTMS system, in addition to other exam FAQs and resources. And then the other link that would be helpful is learnci.com, and that's where you'll find additional information about the learning system. We have some free practice questions there, study tips. We also have a listing of all of our instructor-led courses, which are available around the world. There's both live and online courses around the world, so you can find a list of them available there. And that's also where you will order the learning system at the discounted price. Okay, now the exciting part. We are going to do a drawing for one person on the call today who will win a free CIA online seminar that includes the learning system materials for that part, and you'll be able to choose between part 1, 2, and 3 and the upcoming dates shown here. So I'm going to ask Julie to please announce the winner.
Thanks, Kelly. And I did just do a random drawing from the attendee list, and I'm hoping she's still online, but Jessica Swain is our lucky winner. Again, that name is Jessica Swain, so please do expect an email from me in the next few business days so we can make arrangements for you to receive your materials and schedule your online course. Back to you, Kelly.
Great, thank you so much. So we have just a minute or two here left for a couple questions, but I wanted to make a note that before we do that, if we did not get to your question, we will either respond directly to you, or we will post the answer to your question at this website, learnci.com/webinar archive. In addition, a copy of the webinar, a recording of the slides will be available, and a recording of the webinar, will be available at this website within by March 2nd. So if you would like to listen to this at a later time or download the slides and look at them later, you're welcome to download them there and get answers to your questions. So maybe, Julie, do you want to just try one question before we log off for today?
Sure. I'm trying to push it out to the slide area, but it seems like my system is going a little slow here, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it. I think this would be a question for Greg in certification. That question reads, I've been an internal auditor for 10 years, but I don't have a degree. Can I still pursue the CIA certification?
That's a great question. To really understand the requirements of what is needed, I highly recommend going to the requirements website for the CIA program, as it's all related to it. There are other options down there, and there's a box that says there is an alternate way if you don't meet the education requirements. So read that document. It's very comprehensive to provide all the information of what qualifies, what doesn't qualify for experience. And also to follow up, there's been some questions I've been fielding about what constitutes as experience for internal audit to go into the CIA program. I highly recommend reviewing the experience form on the requirements page. In that form, it's a PDF, it'll list out all the specific areas which qualify as experience. So it might help a lot of questions.
Thanks, Greg. I think we have time for one more question, so I'm going to try and push it out there, but in case it doesn't go out, it reads, I purchased the CIA Learning System materials last year. Will they be valid to use if I take the exams this year in 2020? I think that would be for Kelly, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, thanks, Julie. So that depends on when last year you purchased. We released our newest version 6 at the end of last August of 2018. So if you purchased after August of 2018 in 19, you likely would have purchased version 6. We did have some French materials available in the old version, so I'd recommend looking at your materials that you have. If you have version 6, they are still applicable for the current exam. Those materials are still good. So if your materials say a version 5 or previous, you would want to upgrade to the new version 6 to make sure you're studying the proper content.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm afraid that's all the time we have today for questions. So as Kelly said before, a playback of this webinar along with the slide deck and other resources will be available at www.learncia.com within the next few business days. I'd like to take this time to thank our presenters for their time and valuable information that they've provided, as well as our audience for taking time out of their day to attend. And I hope everybody has a great day. We'll see you on the next online event. Take care.